Price rallied this morning on Euro CAD and I just picked up a short position. And in this video, we're going to be doing some live trading on a real trading account, no fake accounts, no MT4, no nonsense, real trading, start to finish. And if that's something that you're down for, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, and let's get started. Okay, so I'm looking at Euro CAD and I decided to actually go short here this morning. Today is NFP day, we had some volatility and I decided ultimately to pick up this short position on Euro CAD. So let's talk a little bit about this, why this area and what is my thought process. I'll start with the technicals first and I'd like to start on the daily chart and then we'll walk it down to where I actually executed the trade on the 4-hour and 1-hour chart. So on the higher time frames, what we can see is that we have a pretty nicely trending market to the downside and I've been wanting to get a piece of the action. In fact, you can see all my orders. I've been trading this thing a lot. I've made some money. I've lost a little bit of money, but overall, I'm looking for the next big swing to the downside to continue this overall trend. You'll notice that this move right here, those are what we would call like money-making moves. I'm looking to see if we can catch something similar on the Euro Canadian dollar cross. And as we come into resistance today, I'm willing to take that bet again. So there's the daily chart. I didn't actually execute on the daily. I looked primarily actually at the 4-hour chart here to place this trade from a technical analysis perspective. I marked up our zones here looking left where we have resistance here, and as we tagged into that area and saw some rejection today, I decided it was worth taking a risk on. Now my stop loss placement is very specific here, so what we have is if we look left, we just have our top of our zone here. If price breaks the top of our zone by any margin, I'll just be out of the trade and look for an opportunity to potentially re-enter later. I'm risking, let's see if I pull up the trade here, I'm risking a total of 70 pips here, which comes out to about $1,600. I'm a swing trader though, so of course 70 pips is not crazy on this pair for somebody using a swing trading approach. And so now let's talk a little bit about where I think this thing could go. First stop, in my opinion, if we really start to sell off here, would be a move back down to the 1.30s. 1.30 here on Euro CAD would be a nice point to really start locking in this stop loss into profit. But before that, I would like to go ahead and get my stop loss to break even if we're able to make a stab lower down to this area around a 1-to-1 risk reward. I'll usually move my stop loss to break even on the trade. So there we go. Now let's also talk a bit about the fundamentals behind this trade, and then what we'll do is we'll pause and we'll watch this video start to finish. Whether I win or lose, I'll put it up on YouTube. I have plenty of winners and losers on my channel to give you guys hopefully a realistic view of what the markets look like. So here's Euro CAD. Euro CAD has a sell rating on our market scanner. This tool takes into account several fundamental and sentiment metrics to help us build a better bias on data-driven trading setups. So if we take a look at the -5 score here, what that's telling us is that according to our metrics that we study, this is getting a sell bias. Now, in terms of that, let's break that down a little bit. The COT data right here shows that the institutional positions for this trade, the CAD or the Canadian dollar, according to the futures market commitment of traders data that we have each week, is 60% positioned long biased from the non-commercial positions that we track. Okay, cool. That's a huge upside for CAD, and that gives us a bias to actually short Euro by CAD. Next up, we can take a look at some of the trend readings here, and this is a big deal as well. You can see that looking at the trend reading, we have a bias to the sell side. So this gives us a little bit of a range of forecast range of where this thing could be headed in the next coming days. We've built this forecast chart to sort of analyze price and find our momentum direction, which is really kind of cool. And again, you can use this on any chart that you want within the Edge Finder. So if we take a look at the 4 categories here, we're racking in a lot of negative score here. It comes down to the fundamentals. If we look at the fundamentals here and we compare the euro versus the Canadian dollar wins in terms of GDP growth. That's positive for the CAD. If we take a look at inflation, there's less inflation in Canada currently. That's bullish for CAD. If we take a look at interest rates, we have 2.5% versus 0.5% from Europe, so that's bullish for CAD. And finally, unemployment rate comes out as less unemployment in Canada, which comes out as bullish for CAD. Overall, we have a 2% bias towards the Canadian dollar, and all of these factors help to assist, again, my bias towards selling the Euro CAD. Then we combine it with the technicals, place the trade, etc. Now we are in the trade. I shared this just inside of our Discord channel. If you're not already inside the Discord and you'd like to see trades being taken in real time, get notifications sent to your phone, that sort of thing, and Edge Finder scans, you're more than welcome to join by clicking the link down below in the description and signing up there. Use that promo code to get a discount on your membership. So there you go. What I'll do now is I'll pause the video. We'll come back once this thing gets moving. All right, guys, it's been a little bit here since I initially took the position, and what you can see here is that the market has started to make a move in my direction, but I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a thought process, just kind of intra-trade breakdown of what's been going on. So we did seemingly find a pretty good level of resistance. You can see price came up to that 132.60 level, and we did in fact find a pretty good rejection there. So far, so good. We're not by any means in the clear. We are floating around $1,400, which is great, but I believe personally that there is more downside here on the trade. And despite $1,400 being a lot of money, don't get me wrong, there's definitely, in my opinion, much more downside potential for the Euro CAD. And again, that's just purely off of the stuff that we talked about in part 1 of this video. But let's talk a little bit more about what I do in a trade situation like this. Okay, so you caught the entry and price starts moving in your favor. Now what? Well, here's how I manage the trade. So if I mark out this distance, so this distance here from my initial entry up to my stop loss is 70 pips, right? So what I'm looking for before I even start to manage the trade is there's nothing to do here until at the very least we start getting to the point where we have 70 pips of profit on our hand. So if the market makes a move of 70 pips to the downside there, which again we can mark that as right here, if we start making a move of about 70 pips to the downside, that's going to be the point where I also start making a move towards trying to put this stop at break even. Now, again, specifically why break even? Well, this is something that is just personal preference. And when it comes to trading, it's not really a total art or a total science, in my opinion. Trading is certainly a combination of the two, and trading psychology is a real thing. So for me, psychologically, if I know that, okay, my risk is still on the table, and while I'm about doing my stuff during the day, I run a software company, making tools for traders, the tools that you saw earlier, like that's like my day job. So I'm doing that stuff and I'm really quite busy. So I don't want to sit around and think about like, well, what do I need to do with my trade? I just want the peace of mind of knowing that if we move 1R in my favor, I'm just going to go ahead and scrap this trade if it goes back the other direction. Especially when we get a beautiful start to a trade like this, I want to go ahead and lock in break even as soon as I reasonably can. And again, key spot for that would be at least 1R, 70 pips in my direction. We're getting kind of close, and we could also mark another thing out. Check this out. If we look left, we have to admit that there is a bit of demand here, and off of the 4-hour chart alone, you could make an argument that, well, we might bounce here. And if that bounce happens and we rally through the highs, I don't want to be caught holding the bag. In fact, in that case, what I'd like to do is go ahead and move stops to break even so that if the market rallies against me, I'm not going to take a huge loss. So what I'm doing here is once this thing starts poking down into our area here, just a little bit more, again, we're looking for 70 pips at least on the table before I do so. So that brings us to right around the bottom of this green little zone. Once that starts to happen, that's going to be the point that we start making a move towards break even. So what we could even do is, if I wanted to just be specific, is once we get to this white line, so we could mark this as our trail to break even at this point. Okay, so really, really simple. And for me, again, half of this is just the mental security of having the stop loss move to break even. It's nothing magical, it's nothing fancy, and people will argue about whether or not you should move stop losses to break even. Is it going to hurt your performance? Is it going to help your performance? Is it better or worse to do? And for me, I know that I've been doing this for a very, very long time, and I am very comfortable with the idea of moving stops to break even and just removing the risk from my account so that I can go on with my day and do things. Literally right in between making these videos, I am working on a program for us here behind the scenes. I'm designing some software stuff for the Edge Finder. So I'm very busy, and I don't really want to sit here and watch the trade and babysit it minute by minute. So I'm just checking back in, and now it's back to waiting. So let's see if this thing can get hit to break even point. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and set an alert, add an alert on the horizontal ray, and yeah, we'll just keep it that way. Create. And at this point, if the market does come down to this level, if it hits that level, then I'll get a notification to trail stops to break even, and we'll see if we come back. All right, guys, so I just got the notification. We did, in fact, get to the point where we highlighted this alert, so we can go ahead and click out of that. So I got that notification just a second ago, and at this point, it is now officially time to go ahead and take the risk off the table, which for me means taking this stop loss and moving it right here, which is going to lock in just $83 on the trade. Modify that. And there we go. We are updated. I'm just going to move this stop loss just so I can see where it goes. So again, what this does is now it takes the risk off the table for me. We hit this level of what could be support, but I don't want to try and just bet and close the trade just because it's hitting this level. I just want to go ahead and there we go. I just want to go ahead and mark that this has basically gotten to a point in the trade where I can take this stop loss, move it to break even, and look for either a decisive continuation move to the downside, or if things start to reverse back the other way, I will just scrap the trade. Now, what it seems like we've got here so far is a good, healthy start to a trade. But we have some barriers we need to get over. So of course we can delete this now. We just trailed that to break even. I just alerted that to members that I just moved my stops to break even inside of the VIP group. And so now all we have to do is sit back with my hands on, sit on my hands and wait to see if this trade actually wants to make a move for us. Again, what that means is I'm looking for this thing to truly start to break structure here to the downside. And ideally we need to see this thing kind of break the higher lows pattern that we've been seeing. So you might be saying, well, Nick, if you identify higher lows, why are you even short in the first place? Remember, just a reminder that longer term, we are looking at a higher time frame move to the downside as price comes up into this rejection area. And we're seeing a healthy start. We just need the follow through, right? So the healthy start is we came up into this area and sold. But now we need to see this thing actually close bearish on the day and potentially start to make that move that we're looking for down to, at the very least, around 1.3050, give or take. So we'll see if we can get that move. Again, nice start to the trade, big rejection, and 4 or 5 red candles here in a row on the hourly chart. So a good, healthy start. Again, key stuff to look for is to see if we can actually now break structure to the downside and start to see sellers really take control of this market. So with that said, what I'll do is I'll pause. I've updated members of the trade alert, and we will give this some more time to go. All right, guys, so it's been a little bit of time since I last recorded an update on my Euro CAD trade. So let's take a look at this together. And what we can see is that the market is moving in my favor so far. The trend on the daily chart does seem like it has held pretty well. And if we go back to our initial idea behind the trade, which was looking for rejection in this area here, right? Mark out our zone. We were basically looking for this topping area to sort of hold as a sell point. And now narrowing down into the 4-hour chart, you can see that we did actually get a beautiful sell off of this zone. So that level of supply that we marked out earlier on in the trade did in fact hold very, very well. Now comes the tricky part. So now we've got our stops to break even. We've managed the risk on the trade. We've taken off, the potential for this trade to turn negative on us. But now we have an important decision to make. How are we going to manage this trade going forward? And this is where we start to trail stops, because now what we've seen is we've seen a nice move to the downside. We've gotten all the way down to a key structure point here. We are now tagging a level of support that previously was a really strong rally point for the Euro CAD. So if we drop it down even more, we'll take a look at the 2-hour chart. You can see what I'm talking about is the last time price was in this area, we consolidated prior to seeing a run up. Now, obviously, I don't really want to sit through another run up. If this market decides to rally and break out, I need to be out of there. And so how can I protect the profits that I have on this trade while also still holding on for the chance of this thing breaking in favor of where we really would like this thing to go? Remember, targeting our overall target zone down in this area here. So we'll actually mark that again, just so we can see that. So again, the overall idea would be to see if we can get back down to a level of demand or our support area here, which we're going to call our target once more. At the point of getting into the target, this is where we're going to start to trail stops pretty aggressively, but we're not quite there. So currently we're coming into this level of support and we have to manage the trade. So this is what I'm going to do. Now I'm going to narrow it down just a little bit more. We'll take a look at the 1-hour chart and we'll zoom into price to see what's been happening. So here's again where we took the initial sell trade. Things have been going pretty well on this position. we actually also have put in some lower highs. And this is where things are getting pretty cool on the trade. This is where we can do is this is where I usually will end up managing my trade is actually on the 1 hour chart. So after we made it to a point where we were able to move stops to break even off of this run to the downside, we actually came back and retested that very same area and found resistance there. So we can mark that area as a key spot. Notice if we look left, that price came down into this area, found buyers, but then ultimately rolled over in favor of the sellers controlling this market still. After that, not only that, we took out the lows, we retested those areas or that area, and we saw sellers continue to hold strong.
Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
All of that tells me that I should probably consider taking my stop loss and moving it just above where we previously failed out. So what we're doing now is we are locking in $2,000 on the trade. Let me go ahead and actually redo this. I actually would like to get it to be right around $2,000, which is going to give me just enough. Let's actually just do this. We'll do $2,005 and modify. Did I do that wrong?
What have you done?
I did do that wrong. Sorry.
What am I doing?
I put it the other way. Okay, let's just do this. There we go. There we go. I typed it in incorrectly, but now we're good. So what we've done here is we have locked in $2,000 on this position. If price does start to break out the other direction, perhaps next week is a Friday when I'm filming this. So we've managed the trade. This is the important stuff. Again, everybody wants to talk about the entries, and I understand entries are exciting. They're fun to look at and talk about, but this is the point where trading becomes very, very tricky for a lot of traders is once you have a trade running in favor, what do you do? How do you lock in those profits and how do you maintain the trade? And that's kind of where what we've done now is we've taken this situation where we're floating $3,200, which is a great profit sitting on the table. We don't want to cut this trade short just because we're tagging potentially a level of support. We also want to give this thing a chance to continue to break out and in favor of our longer term targets down much further. At the same time, we can see market structure has been putting in lower highs, and we want that to continue to be the case if we're going to stay in the trade. So my rule for exiting this position is that if we take out the previous lower high, right? So if we start doing something like this, I'm going to go ahead and take my profits. And $2,000 on this trade, I'd be very happy to take $2,000. If the trade continues to run south, we'll be happy with that, of course, too. Now, one more thing I want to show you is that we do continue to see the edge finder giving us a strong sell bias on the trade, which is giving me, again, confirmation to continue to hold this thing on the short side. In all of the economic data that we looked at earlier points towards continuing to hold this thing short. And a little side note, I'm actually holding this thing and collecting positive swaps due to the interest rate divergence of 2% towards the CAD. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I have some videos on the carry trade. Maybe what we'll do is we'll pop it up on the screen if you would like to see it. Up in the top right, you should see a video on the carry trade, which is a component to my strategy where by holding higher yielding interest currencies, you can actually collect positive swaps if you're familiar with swaps on your brokerage. So anyways, I'm collecting positive swaps. I'm willing to hold this thing into the weekend, and we do have stop losses locked here at right around 1.3163 to secure the trade in the case that this thing starts to break out in the other direction. There we go. We'll pause the video, come back once things get a little bit more interesting. All right, guys, we're all out of the trade here for a total of around $2,000 of profit, which to me is a really good trade. I'm happy with how this one played out. Just a overall recap, you can see where we entered the trade back here, where my initial entry came in the higher time frames on the 4-hour chart. We saw that zone, started to reject, jumped into the trade, held it throughout, and saw a series of lower highs. And you can see our actual trigger to get out of the trade was a break of that pattern to the downside. What we were looking for was ideally a breakout of this zone here, which we did come into. We found a lot of support at, and for me, that means getting out of the way until we can find another opportunity to enter the trade again, or maybe trade something else. Now I can already hear, Nick, at one point you were up like $3,000 something. Why didn't you close down here at support? And why did you get greedy and hold on to the trade? And to that answer or to that question, it is actually a great question. Why not close the trade, right? You were up in profit. The problem with that is, of course, number one, it relies on hindsight, knowing that you already know now that the market did in fact hold this area. We didn't know that that was going to happen at the time, and we were ultimately shooting for a breakout of this zone to see if we could get down to our target. We never quite made it, but we still stepped away with profit. So I can't complain about that. But number two is, okay, for me as a trend follower, as somebody who is looking to catch like a bigger move, like on the daily chart, I'm not looking for just a move from a support level on the or a resistance level on the 1 hour to the support level on the 1 hour. I'm looking for the daily chart to continue to trend lower. So in this case, we were looking for ultimately, if we could get it, that move, that multi-move to the downside. We didn't quite get it. Even though we had a nice trade, like we entered here, we caught that move, like even though this was a great trade, it wasn't a runaway trade, and those come very rarely for me. When they do come, they are amazing. I've had trades where they'll run for hundreds of pips in my favor, and it turns into thousands of dollars of profit in a single trade. Unfortunately, those are something that most of the time I don't catch in every single one of my trades, because with trailing stops, you accept the idea that even though I'm entering a trade like this and the market went in my favor, you guys saw at one point I was up 3,000. I only walked away with 2,000. And the upside to that is that occasionally I'll take a trade, and instead of walking away with 3,000 and closing that trade, I'll walk away with 8,000, right? And that's what we're ultimately shooting for with these trades. So to walk away with any profit at all, I'm happy with, and I can still look for that next trade setup that could be potentially the $8,000 trade. I'm not going to force it on this one. I'm out for a profit. I'm happy with how this trade played out. Thank you for watching. And remember, if you would like to join our Discord channel or get access to the Edge Finder, which is the market scanner that helped me find this trade, you can find out all the information to those things and get discounts using the link and promo codes down below in the description. Thank you guys for watching. Looks like it's time for your next trading video. Check out the videos here and here for more free trading content that should help you in your trading journey. We try and keep it real here, so make sure to subscribe for more content that is down to earth, realistic Forex trading content. See you in the next video.